It's good to be with you again. I will quickly go through some things on the council meeting and we will get into the business here today. Thanks for everyone tuning in online and thanks to all councillors for being here. As a quick appreciate over the people that are here tonight, I'll just quickly go around the room. If you could please all introduce yourself and your role at council and the ward, etc. that you are operating under here at council. So Jamie Chubb, can I start with you please?
Thank you. Jamie Chubb, I'm the Director of Community Wellbeing here at council.
I'm Stephen Swart, I'm the Director of Development Services.
Alan Clark, Director of Infrastructure Services.
Sarah Brindley, Director of Corporate Services.
Irene Grant, I'm the Councillor for the Warby Ward.
Harvey Benton, North Ward and portfolios of agriculture, emergency and sports.
Jack Herry, City Ward, and portfolio of community engagement and environment, sustainability and waste resources.
Brendan McGrath, Chief Executive Officer.
Dean Rees, Mayor at the Rural City and City Ward Councillor as well as Planning Portfolio. Thank you.
Harry Bussell, Deputy Mayor, South Ward Representative and Tourism is my portfolio. Thank you.
Councillor Dave Fuller, City Ward, and representing the Arts, Culture, Events and Heritage Advisory Committee and the Community Engagement.
Councillor Ashley Fitzpatrick for the City Ward, Community Wellbeing, Youth, Families and All Abilities is my portfolio.
Thank you all. This public meeting is being recorded to improve access to the meeting for our community. The recording will be published and will be retained by council in accordance with the council's legal obligations. You ask if you have submitted a question, your name and question will be recorded. We'll be constantly live streaming. If the live streaming does break, we will pause and wait till the live streaming to come back before we resume our meeting. I wish to begin by acknowledging the Bangarang as our original inhabitants on whose country we are gathered, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and future, and extend our respect to any other First Nation people who may be present here today. Would you please stand for the opening prayer? Almighty God, we humbly ask Thee to bless and guide this council in its deliberations so that we may truly preserve the welfare of the people whom we serve. Amen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We had a visitor yesterday. Was Their Excellencies, the General... Harry, could you help me out here? Their Excellencies General... The Governor-General, sorry. The Commonwealth of Australia. It's very hard to say that when you don't have it in front of you all the time. And Mrs Hurley, and what a great pleasure it was to host them. We travelled out to the King Valley, through the countryside, stopping in a number of groups of people throughout our municipal city and municipal area, and we had a great afternoon and a great morning, a great afternoon, and their representation at our Australia Day Awards yesterday was just fantastic, and the naturalisation of citizens to Australia was a great treat for them to do. They were speaking openly about it last night with Brendan and myself on how they felt so positive about what Australia has in store for the up-and-coming people over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So it was a very proud moment for our council to host Their Excellencies. So I'd like to pass on my regards to them and say thanks, and we can't wait to have them back. So thank you. We'll move into the meeting. There are no conflicts of interest on any issues gathered here at the meeting. I will move to 9.1, which is Sandford Road and Hamilton Crescent. Oh, sorry, I've skipped over. Sorry, can I go to item 7? Thank you. The confirmation of the previous minutes of the meeting. Can I have a mover to move those? Councillor Grant and Councillor Benton. Would anybody like to talk on those? Councillor Benton.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to be able to point out a fact in relationship to the community engagement which policy was put forward. The recommended amendments are embedded in the report further down, which may be a little bit confusing. It's that they're not highlighted in one by one, not pointed into the motion. However, the policy does appear to, the original policy that we voted on, does all have some of those amendments in it at the present time. I am assured that the final document will be the right one, so we'll take it when it comes back for resolution. Thank you.
You happy to move forward and vote when it comes time to vote, Harvey? Correct. Councillor Fuller.
Mr Mayor, thank you. I'm just noting that the 25th was actually the Christmas Day, and we actually met on the 15th, not the 25th. If that could be changed in the recommendation, please.
Good pick up. Thanks, Dave. Anybody else like to talk on the confirmation of those minutes? So if not, I'll put the motion to... Sorry, I had a mover and a seconder. Can I put the motion to a vote? All those in favour to accept the minutes as true count? The motion is carried. So 9.1, which is reception of petitions, is the Sanford Road and Hamilton Park Crescent upgrade petition. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've received a petition containing 21 signatures from residents of Hamilton Crescent, asking for Council to consider some infrastructure works to be done as part of the Sanford Road upgrade project. In accordance with the local law, we will bring a report back on that item at the February Council meeting.
Thank you, Brendan. Can I have a mover for that to move forward? Councillor Fitzpatrick and a seconder. Councillor Benton. Would anybody like to talk? No. I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 11 is presentation of reports by councillors. So I might start this myself. Today is the final day for one of our esteemed council directors, Alan Clark. Alan's has been with council for probably 6 years, Brendan, would you say? 6 years at the rural city of Wangaratta, and I've been here for, this is my 5th year, so I've had basically 5 years with Alan, and found his contribution to council has been superb, and I'd like to wish him well on his journeys moving forward in his career and his, I hate to say retirement, but moving forward in that and career further path. So I'd like to offer a round of applause for Alan Clark and the work he's done. Thank you. Perhaps 7 years. Alan, I'll throw over to you. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Dean. Yes, it's 7 years on the 3rd of March, so by the time I finish my leave, it'll be a bit over 7 years. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege to work for council for those 7 years, and I'll certainly leave with a great deal of pride of being part of the changes that have occurred and those which are planned to occur in the future. I think there's been massive change across all fronts across the rural city in that time, and I think I leave in feeling really pleased and happy and accomplished in what has gone on. So very happy to leave as it stands right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Would anybody else like to report on that? Councillor
Yes,
Benton?
Mr Mayor, I had the portfolio for infrastructure for the term of 4 years with Alan, and Alan taught me a lot of things in relationship to how we get things moving in relation to the infrastructure area, and I know he had some desires and pushes we do get things done, try and streamline. I know it still takes time to get them done, but I do wish Alan all the best. I know he's an avid canoeist, so all the best and in the future. Thanks, Alan.
Councillor Fuller.
Mr Mayor, yes, I'd like to acknowledge Alan's penchant for waste and the fact that he championed to get our organics up and running, and I look forward to his replacement as such, working as hard to get the waste conversation going for other items as well. So all the best, Alan, and all the best to his replacement.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Alan, for being so approachable within the community and leading such a strong team, which is very reflected in our community. And you've done so many great things with the youth with your team. So I really want to thank you, and hopefully you get a good dose of vitamin C where you retire. Thank you.
Irene Grant. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to endorse Councillor Fuller's comments about Alan's services to the waste industry and the work that he's done in green waste collection. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I'd like to move a motion that we minute a vote of thanks to Alan and his service to the rural city of Wangaratta.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Can I have a second to Harvey Benton? Councillor Benton, all those in favour of that motion? That motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Grant, and thank you, Alan. Wangaratta is certainly in a better place from the last 7 years of your work. Thank you. We'll move on to corporate services. So we're going into 13.1, which is the Audit and Risk Committee independent members appointment. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. So this item is asking the councillors to endorse the appointment of 2 preferred candidates as independent members to Council's Audit and Risk Committee. This follows a advertising and interview period. We interviewed some very accomplished and experienced candidates, and the 2 recommended candidates we feel have the best fit for council and the broadest skill set that should hopefully benefit us over the length of their term. The recommendation also just asked that we tidy up a discrepancy in the charter to make it clear that we would have 6 members overall, 4 independent members and the 2 councillor members. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I please have a mover? Councillor Bussell and a seconder. Councillor Benton. Would anybody like to talk on the recommendation? Thank you. I'll put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? The recommendation is carried. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And I'll just confirm the names of those 2 individuals, which are Gavin Nolan, who's a Wangaratta local, and Vito Giudici, who lives just on the border with the rural city of Wangaratta.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 13.2, which is our councillor gift policy.
Thank you. So each month I'm coming with various draft policies in relation to the implementation of the new Local Government Act 2020, and this is another one of those. So councillors are required to adopt a councillor gift policy to be transparent about the nature of gifts that councillors may or may not receive and that are required to declare. There's a recommendation there on the screen. I know councillors will propose a slight amendment to that. Overall, councillors are being asked to endorse the draft policy to go on exhibition for 28 days for public submissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Jack, do you have an alternative section to that number 1 on the motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Please continue.
So I have the alternative section, item number 1, that reads, endorses the proposed councillor gift policy and the community impact statement attached to this report for the purposes of a major council policy consultation process, with the following definition of a gift offer added to the table of definitions. Gift offer: all offers of gifts and gifts given, token and non-token, accepted or declined. All gift offers must be declared by completion of a gift offer declaration form. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Can I have a mover of this recommendation, please? I'll take Jack as the mover, because you did change that. Sorry, Jack. As a seconder, thank you, Councillor Fuller. Would anybody else like to talk on this recommendation? Councillor Benton.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think council's in a predicament here where we've got to support the thing because it's a statutory document. I know we can tweet it around the edges, but this is getting on to the point of bureaucratic madness when you're getting down to the value of a cup of coffee that we've got to either refuse, and if we refuse it, we've still got to fill in the paperwork. If we can afford in this country that amount of administration to go around worrying about whether we've got a cup of coffee documented after you've had it or not had it, I think we've really got to start and stand up and have a look at ourselves. And it's got to be somewhere along the line, there's got to be a pushback. I can understand why it's come in, but it's gone down to the ridiculous point that you've got to worry about a cup of coffee. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your thoughts, Councillor Benton. Any other thoughts from councillors? Councillor Bussell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be very interested to see what the public think about this, and I look forward to the feedback. So I urge people from the public to put some feedback in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benton. Councillor Herry.
I do agree that it can get down to a very fine point. However, I imagine that the public will appreciate documents which do ensure there's a very careful consideration with the way we conduct ourselves as councillors, and very much thoughtfulness for transparency and influence.
Thank you, Councillor Herry. Councillor Grant.
Look, I agree in part with what everyone has said,
Yes,
but I
just
think
one
what
moment.
I'm concerned about...
Please. Yes. He did close the conversation as the last. Sorry, Councillor Grant.
All right.
Except I didn't see your hand prior to Councillor Herry putting it up, and he was the last person.
Okay.
He was the recommender,
Yes.
and
right.
he has the last offer of refusal. I'm sorry for...
Yes, well, I was just going to say that, I think for us to have a document that dictates how we conduct ourselves, I think, we all appreciate what we need to do.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Councillor Herry, anything further to finish off now? As Councillor Grant has spoken?
Thank you.
Great, that's your finish. I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The recommendation is carried. Thank you. Sarah, please, 13.4, the ICT strategy.
I'm just going to go to 13.3 next.
13.3,
okay.
I've already crossed that out, Sarah, so I thought we'd skip it. But no, we'll go back to it if you like. 2020-21 Q2 forecast review.
Thank you, Mary. So, Council reports quarterly on our financial performance versus our adopted budget, and this is to give transparency as to how we're operating, and also to demonstrate the progress we're making in delivering against those commitments. Overall, I'd say the financial position is stable from last quarter to this quarter. So we have an improvement to surplus of 1.535 million. And a net decrease to capital works expenditure of $111,000. I would add, though, that the underlying operating result has improved by $87,000. So a lot of that additional surplus is grant funding that we've been received, and we've been very successful at attracting additional grant funding recently, but those funds are not yet expended. So the underlying impact is $87,000. I'd also note the reduction in the capital works expenditure of $111,000. There's an increase in expenditure there, which again ties to some of the grant funding that we've been able to attract, and some additional works that we'll be doing. That's been offset to a positive and overall decrease in expenditure due to savings. So that's from completing design works and awarding tenders below budget, which is also a great outcome. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Can I please have a mover for that? Councillor Fitzpatrick, and a seconder? Councillor Bussell, sorry. Would anybody like to talk on 13.3? No, thank you. I'll put 13.3 to the vote. Are all those in favour of the recommendation? The recommendation is carried. Thank you, Sarah. We'll now move on to 13.4.
Thank you. So this is to confirm the award of the ICT strategy. So back, I think in the December council meeting, councillors authorised the CEO to award and sign a contract for the award of the ICT core business systems tender. So following a formal tender process, that this is just to disclose that tender has now been awarded to Technology One, known as Tech One in the industry, for a total of $3,054,600. That is a 5-year contract, I'll just add. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, can I have a mover for the ICT strategy? Councillor Benton, and a seconder? Councillor Bussell. Would anybody like to talk on 13.4 ICT strategy core business?
I'd just like to say, Samir, this has been accumulated over some years. It even goes back to the previous council. We started this in motion, and it looks at a large amount of money, but it is over a period of time to get things up to speed, because the ITC, and I'm no computer expert, but I believe by the advice that we were getting, wasn't really up to speed. Thank you.
Agree. Thank you, Councillor Benton. Anybody else like to talk on this? Councillor Bussell.
Yeah, I'd like, excuse me, I'd like to endorse what Councillor Bentman said, and I think this is why it's very, very important that we keep track of our renewal within council, because this is a classic case of where there's clearly been underinvestment for a very, very long time in this area, and certainly with COVID-19 and having to move into a new area, it just highlights how important our IT system is. So this is a necessity. Thank you.
Comments? Are there any other councillors like to talk? Councillor Ben, you didn't need to finish off? No, you're okay. I'll put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? The recommendation is carried. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
13.4, 13.5.
13.5. This is seeking council authorisation for the CEO to sign a deed of variation to the Wangaratta Livestock Exchange Management Services Agreement, and to apply the seal, the common seal, to that deed of variation. The Wangaratta Livestock Exchange is a subsidiary of council, and this is formalising the arrangements for their payment of rent via a licence fee to council, which just ensures that they are operating on a level playing field with other competitors in their sector, to make sure they're not being unduly cross-subsidised by ratepayer funds ultimately. So this is seeking to formalise that via a deed of variation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That obviously helps with our competitive neutrality by doing it this correct way. Thank you. Can I get someone to move the recommendation, please? Councillor Fuller, and a seconder, please. Councillor Herry. Would anybody like to talk on the Wangaratta Livestock Exchange deed of variation? Okay, I'll put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? The recommendation is carried. Thank you, Sarah. Jamie, 14.1 Community Wellbeing, Arts, Culture, Events and Heritage Advisory Committee appointments. Thank you.
Thank you. So this report is presented to Council tonight to present an outcome of the recent expression of interest process that was run for membership to our Arts, Culture, Events and Heritage Advisory Committee. So the expression of interest called for people across our community to put in an expression of interest. We were lucky enough to receive 16 nominations. However, one nomination was withdrawn after the closing date. The recommendation before Council tonight resolves to appoint 10 of these candidates listed as per the attachment as the new representatives to the Rural City of Wangaratta's Arts, Culture, Heritage and Events Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Jamie. Can I have someone move that recommendation? Councillor Fuller, someone second. Councillor Fitzpatrick. Would anybody like to talk on that, Councillor Fuller?
I'd just like to take this opportunity to congratulate the people that have been brought to the committee, if I may. And just reading through the list without their terms, but Amanda Kelly, Suze Christensen, Dave Godkin, returning member, Lucille Milne, Pam Proctor, Sarah Thompson, Tim Ellis, Tim Dickinson, Rachel Fisher and Paddy Milne, and also acknowledge the following people who are finishing up. So Rhonda, Marg, Adrian, Ian, Trish and Mark have been a varied amount of people, and it was nice last week we had our first and final meeting for last year, this year sort of thing overlapping. And there were some recollections on times going as far back as the 80s for some of these members that have previously sat on the committee. So I look forward to a new chapter for this group. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I was going to get you to read those names out after we accept the recommendation, after it gets accepted, but that's okay. That's hopefully it gets accepted with their names now in the public forum. So good job. But would anybody else like to talk on the recommendation moving forward? Well, in that case, Dave, we'll put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? The recommendation is carried. Thanks, Dave. Could you read those names out again, Dave, on who was accepted?
So the following people have been accepted: Amanda Kelly for a 2-year term, Suze Christensen, 3-year term, Dave Godkin, 2-year term, Lucille Milne, 2-year term, Pam Proctor, 3-year term, Sarah Thompson, 2-year term, Tim Ellis, 2-year term, Tim Dickinson, 2-year term, Rachel Fisher, 3-year term, and Paddy Milne, 2-year term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Thank you, Jamie. 15, item 15.1, infrastructure service. Alan, please.
Thanks, Mayor. So this report's presented to Council to advise of the awarding of contracts and the contract amounts following negotiations with preferred tenderers. This is for 3 contracts. All 3 have previously been to Council, but to get best value for money for Council, there was room for some final negotiations which have now occurred. So the recommendations are on the screen. The 3 contracts were the annual reseal contract, the design and construction of Adventure Playground and Parkwell Play Space down at Apex Park, and the reconstruction of Sandford Road.
Thank you, Alan. Can I have someone to move the recommendation, please? Councillor Fitzpatrick and Councillor Bussell to second it. Would anybody like to talk on the recommendation? No. Moving forward, we'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Thank you, Alan. We'll move on to 16. Thank you, Stephen. 16.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is about the membership of Council's Agriculture and Agribusiness Advisory Committee. The committee has 3 vacancies at the moment. Council has received an application to fill one of these. The application has been assessed against the skills matrix, and it's recommended that Council appoints the applicant as a representative of the committee for a term of 3 years.
Thank you, Stephen. Can I have someone move that recommendation? Councillor Benton, seconder. Councillor Fuller. Would anybody like to talk on the recommendation? No. I'll put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Harvey Ben, could you please let us know who the member is?
Mr Noel Kneebone from Mummungy.
Noel Bennett, sorry?
Bennett, sorry.
Thank you.
I hope that didn't shock Noel. But I have known both, and I know Noel Bennett very well, and Noel has been a representative on the Beechworth Shire some many years ago, and I think he'd be a great asset.
Great, good to hear. Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Stephen. Again, 16.2.
Yes, this item is about Council's draft environmental sustainability strategy. The draft strategy is attached to the agenda and was prepared in consultation with stakeholders. The draft strategy builds on the strategy that was finalised in 2014 and sets out actions to reduce environmental impacts and improve environmental outcomes over the next 5 years under a number of priority areas, including biodiversity, built environment, emissions and energy reduction, waterways, sustainable communities, and waste reduction and resource recovery. The next step in the process in preparing the final strategy is to seek broad public input, and the office's recommendation is that Council endorse the draft environmental sustainability strategy and places the strategy on public exhibition for a period of 30 days.
Thank you, Stephen. Jack Herry, can I hear from you?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to move the alternate motion that Council defers a decision on the endorsement of the strategy to enable Council more time to consider the item, but also to enable the upcoming extensive community engagement which is being conducted, to the output from that to feed in and possibly also inform further refinement of the strategy.
Councillor Benton, please do that. This draft doesn't yet. It's coming back to Council first. Before it then will come to another meeting, and then we will offer it out to the community from there. So this is just purely to delay this recommendation coming forward, the existing recommendation with maybe this change.
But isn't it already out in the community in terms of being part of the council paper?
Is that correct, Stephen?
Well, the council agenda is publicly available. Council hasn't put it out to public exhibition yet because it requires a decision of council to do that.
Mm-hmm. So we won't be putting it out if the recommendation of Jack's moving forward is to delay putting it out to the public. Councillor Bussell?
My question, Mr Mayor, is put on the table, how many days have we put on the table?
Well, we'll wait till we come back to another council meeting when we bring it back, and then we'll put it out to the public from there. It's not going out to the public at all from here. This is just holding it back for us to discuss further and see what we can come up with new recommendations.
I would
Correct.
like to propose for it to be the next council meeting,
Correct.
ordinary meeting.
Okay. And if we need more time, we could have a look at delaying it again, and or then going out to community consultation with change from there. But at this stage, Jack's recommendation is to defer it for further consultation amongst us and senior staff, and then it'll come back to the next council's. Is that part of your recommendation to come back to the next council meeting? Okay. So, so Jack's the move. Councillor Benton? Could you read the motion again, please, Councillor?
I move the motion that council defers a decision on the endorsement of this strategy to enable council more time to discuss the strategy and afford an opportunity for extensive community engagement, which is yet to be done, to feed in and talk to the strategy.
Yep. I kind of know where Harvey's going now because it mentions community consultation and we're not, so we need to kind of drop that part off. Again, to amend that recommendation of Jack's. Yep. Are you happy to drop that part off, Jack?
Yep, fair. Understood. So
Great.
I'm happy to drop that part off. Shall
Okay,
I read it
great.
again?
Please, without
Yes.
that extensive recommendation.
So I move the motion that council defers a decision on endorsement of the strategy until a later date, such as the next ordinary council meeting, to enable council more time to consider the document.
Correct. So that's the mover. Can we have a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Fitzpatrick. Would anybody like to talk on the recommendations? Jack, as you're the mover, would you like to talk first on the recommendation on why this is the situation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that there is room for reviewing some of the goals in the document and further discussion amongst councillors with the direction that we would like the rural city of Wangaratta to take with respect to some of the topics that are covered and tackled by this document. So I think that we haven't had an opportunity to discuss that, given that we've come out of the elections late last year and into the break and just starting the year now. So some more time for that would be very beneficial for us as a group.
Okay, Jack, so just a question. The reason behind this recommendation is to come back to council to discuss amongst us councillors and senior staff members in relation to it before then coming back to a council meeting to then go out to public consultation, whether that be 30, 60 days, etc. We'll wait until that next council meeting to decipher that.
Correct, yes.
Great. Any further comments from councillors on this matter while we're discussing it? No? All good? I'll put the recommendation then of Jack's new recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? Great, the recommendation is carried. Thank you, Jack. Stephen, thank you for that. And that's all. I'll move down to items 18.1 and 18.2. Brendan, Audit and Risk Committee and Audit Advisory Committee will do it. Annual report will do as one.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. So these two items are bringing the minutes from the most recent Audit and Risk Committee meeting held in December last year. That actually reads 2021 in the report. That should say 2020. And also bringing the annual report from that same committee to council for endorsement.
Thank you, Brendan. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Fitzpatrick. Seconder, be Councillor Grant. No comments from council on this one. I'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? The recommendation is carried. There's no notices of motions and no urgent business. There's no questions from the public and there's no confidential business. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attendance here today. Council, senior staff, to people watching online, thank you for your attendance, and we'll be closing off the meeting now. So everybody have a great evening, and goodbye, Alan.